Hi everybody, today we're talking about tripods, and as you can see there are a lot of different kinds of tripods. So I try to give a general lesson that you can apply to anyone that you run into. So first of all, this is a monopod actually. There's no feet. You have to hold it in order to use it. This one has the added feature of having an articulated head, so you can tilt the camera with it. There's another kind of monopod that you don't need to hold, and that's the one I'm using now to shoot this video with my cell phone. It's got a cell phone holder on it, and it has feet. So moving from less expensive to more expensive, here's a really lightweight, inexpensive tripod. Costs you about $20 to $40. Not really that great for doing camera moves like tilts and pans, but certainly good for a beginner and appropriate for a DSLR since it's lightweight. This is the tripod I bought in 1991 for a Hi8 camera, and then I brought it back out when I bought my DSLR. Very reliable, very durable. Obviously it's lasted a long time. Mid-range price. I'm not going to give you prices, and I'm not going to try to mention any brands just so I'm not promoting anything, but the prices will fluctuate a lot depending on whether you're buying them new or used, or whether they have a fluid head on them, and that's a key thing. So this tripod is nice and smooth, and some of the other ones not so much. This one has the functionality of being able to tilt to the side, which is kind of nice. You can put your camera on it and have a side shot or anything in between. It also has these legs that can spread all the way out and kind of do the splits, and you can get really low to the ground. And then other fluid head tripods like this one here, 2 risers, some of them have 3 risers, some of them have a different rising mechanism. They all have their own way of attaching the camera to the tripod, and the key thing is the tripod plate. So one of the key things is to learn how your tripod plate attaches to your camera and then how it attaches to the tripod itself. The tripod is useless without the plate, so you should always think of your tripod as being 3 pieces really: the legs, the head, and the plate. The legs and the head are almost always attached to each other. At some schools, the tripod plate comes on the camera already, so that you don't have to worry about transferring it from the tripod to the camera and back when you return the equipment. So rule number 1 with the tripod, you want to separate the pan handle from the legs, and you do that so that when you flop the legs open, the pan handle is not in your way. You want to build the tripod from the bottom up, so always raise the bottom riser first, then you can flop the legs open and set the tripod down. Now if you want to raise the tripod from there, you've got the ability to raise it from the top riser, which is closer to you. Always having access to the top riser to raise the tripod more is way easier than having to reach down to the ground and raise the tripod again from the bottom riser. So always build the tripod from the bottom up. Some tripods have a pedestal function where you can raise the camera up from a bar that goes through the middle of the legs. A third lesson for tripods is regarding the tilt lock and the pan lock. One of the most common ways a tripod gets damaged is people trying to move the tripod without unlocking the tilt. It's kind of like driving your car with the parking brake on. Whenever you want to move the camera, tilting, panning on the tripod, you need to make sure the tilt lock and the pan lock are loose. Once you set your shot, then you can lock them off, and only finger tight. You don't need to lean on these things and tighten them really hard. Anytime you walk away from the camera, you should make sure the tilt lock is locked, but the pan lock doesn't really need to be, because the camera won't really get damaged if someone bumps into the tripod. Unless the tripod falls over, and the chances of that are less if the pan lock is loose, because then the camera will just pan if someone nudges it. So make it a habit of loosening the tilt lock when you walk up to the camera to start using it, and then locking the tilt lock when you walk away from the camera. So here's some examples of how tripod plates go on. The monopod has a switch that releases the plate out to the side, and then when the plate goes back in, it snaps the lock back into place. This one has a little release button, and again it snaps back into place. This one is way more complicated. There's this knob here that needs to be loosened, and then there's a release button that you push to slide the plate out. The release button will move this little lever, which will hold the tripod plate onto the tripod, which keeps the camera from sliding off the back of the tripod. This knob is going to push this silver bar into the edge of the tripod plate, securing it in place. So that's a little bit more complicated mechanism. Here's one that's also a little bit different. There's a swing arm here with a little button on the bottom, and you need to pull the button down in order to release it all the way to the side, and that pops the plate out. And then there's a little silver button there that the plate will lean down on to snap the tripod plate back into place. So as you can see, there's all different kinds of tripods, different kinds of plates, different kinds of heads, different kinds of legs. And so take the lessons number 1, always get the pan handle away from the legs first, always build the tripod from the bottom up. And remember, there is a top to a tripod. It is the head of the tripod. And when you put it back in the bag, make sure the zipper ends up at the side where the head is. That way, when you carry it around in the bag, you always know where the feet are and you can set it down on the ground without damaging the head. So that's the tripod lesson for today. Thanks for watching, and remember, treat the equipment as if you owned it, and it will stay safe for the next student.